Hello, welcome everyone. This is Joyce Ann Wainio with the National Center for Healthcare Leadership. I'd like to welcome you to the introduction to the National Council on Administrative Fellowships and to the National Administrative Fellowship Centralized Application Service. I have with me today Renata Costa, the Program Coordinator for NCAF, as well as Robert Ruiz with Liaison. Now for a little bit about NCAF. NCAF was started a few years ago by a group of administrative fellowship programs as well as graduate health management programs who were very interested in creating a collaboration to improve the application process as well as the fellowship experience for new administrative fellows throughout the country. This leading group of organizations, as well as support from CAMI, the accrediting organization for graduate health management programs, as well as AUPHA, came together to discuss ways that this might happen. With that, they created the National Council on Administrative Fellowships. This is a member-driven organization. We currently have a number of health systems as well as graduate programs from across the country. And you'll note as I turn this over to Renata, these leading organizations that have been involved in this work over the past 2 years.
Thank you, Joyce Ann. So as Joyce Ann mentioned, we have a group of leading healthcare organizations as well as graduate programs that participate in NCAF. And this is a map of our current membership. So right now we have 61 health systems that participate and 34 graduate programs. We kind of span all over the country, as you see, mostly Midwest, Southeast and Northeast region, but there has been a lot of momentum and growth with NCAF membership, so we hope to continue growing and hope to expand more to the West Coast as well. So even though we are giving you a member list right now of who's participating, we want to make sure that students know that we might continue to grow and to keep checking back on our website. Here is a list of our graduate health management programs currently. We have 34 graduate programs, and they've been kind of influential in kind of helping the students have a voice in this process. So when NCAF was created, the application process was kind of all over the place, and the graduate programs have really been able to ensure that there's a lot of value and improvement in the application process for the students, as well as the fellowship sites. But the graduate programs in particular is a very important part of the fellowship of NCAF. And I want to highlight that if you're a student from a non-member organization, you will still be allowed to apply to administrative fellowships that are an NCAF member, as well as participate in NAFCAS. It just is better for us to have these programs participate in NCAF because then we're able to better communicate, but that does not disqualify you from applying. And here is a list of our fellowship programs. So as I mentioned, we have 61 health systems currently in our membership, and the asterisks will let you know who currently is participating in NAFCAS. So NAFCAS will be opening on July 19th, and Robert will be talking a little bit more about that. But so far, when you create an application profile in NAFCAS, these are the sites that you will be able to apply using the centralized application service. And before I kick it off to Robert, I want to go back to one slide, which is the Code of Good Practice. Part of NCAF and part of being a member of NCAF is everybody abides by a Code of Good Practice. And this was set back when NCAF started. It was the first major goal of NCAF. And the big part of the Code of Good Practice are the collaborative uniform application dates. So on your screen, you will see that the uniform application deadline for 2016 is Monday, October 3rd. So that means that any site that is participating in NCAF will not have an earlier deadline than October 3rd. The uniform initial offer date is Monday, November 14th. So anybody participating in NCAF will not offer before that date. And that gives students a 6-week time frame to interview and be able to really gauge what's best for their career trajectory and make the best decision on what fellowship is best for them. Part of the Code of Good Practice is also that applicants can only hold one offer at a time. So to make sure that this is a fair process for the fellowship sites as well, we ask students that they only hold one offer and continue to accept or reject the sites accordingly, so then that fellowship sites can know who to offer to next and keep the process moving. And then also, NCAF members will give students a 48-hour decision window to make your decision. So with that, I will hand it off to Robert, who will talk about NAFCAS.
Great. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Renata. Thank you, Joyce-Ann. This is Robert Ruiz from Liaison. Happy to talk for the next 6 or 7 slides a little bit about the applicant experience with NAFCAS. Excuse me. As Renata mentioned, once you create an application, you'll then be able to access a number of sites and submit applications to those sites. What you're seeing here is the login page. I think it's fairly intuitive, but on the left you see some general descriptive information about NAFCAS as a service. On the right, you'll be prompted to create an account with a username and password. One of the conveniences here is that this username and password will allow you to access ultimately your application materials for each of your sites. So you'll have to remember henceforth just one account and password. Should also mention that the application can be completed in segments, so you need not complete the application all in one sitting. You have the ability to create the account, come back, add information, add information, complete additional sections, and move on. So you can certainly do this at your pace. A couple of things you'll notice at the bottom of the page. The NAFCAS liaisoncast.com is the URL you will use to access the site. We would encourage you to take a look at that site. It has other helpful information. And also, as Renata and Joyce-Ann have both mentioned, the application itself will open for the new cycle on July 19th. So NAFCAS will begin on July 19th. I'm going to go ahead and move to the next site. And the next slide, I should say, is a slide that shows you the entry point for the application. On the left, you'll see some basic information such as a dashboard. This will give you a very quick look at how many upcoming deadlines you have, how many applications yet to submit, if we've sent you any notifications, which we can do within the application via email, or you may opt in for text messages. We'll be prompting you as an applicant on a regular basis to complete your application and alerting you to upcoming relevant dates and deadlines. So that's on the left. On the right, you'll see what I call the 4 quadrants. And we'll just walk through each of these. The personal information quadrant, as the name implies, will collect personal information: name, address, contact information, email, phone number, demographic background, and then this information will be shared with each of the sites to which you submit an application. On the top right, the academic history quadrant, as the name implies, will be collecting some data such as institutions attended, degrees earned, other kinds of information relative to the applicant's academic background. Bottom left quadrant, supporting information, is where you will be asked to provide additional information such as a resume or CV by way of an upload, or other kinds of supporting information. Those first 3 quadrants, personal, academic, supporting, are what we would call the standard or root application, meaning this data is going to be transmitted to each of the sites you designate for application, and it doesn't have variants. The bottom right quadrant, however, program materials, will be specific to each of you as an applicant based on the sites you've designated. So for example, if you've designated the University of Michigan, Cleveland Clinic, Mass General, you will be prompted to answer some additional questions and provide some additional information for each of those respective sites. So in essence, what you are seeing here is a centralized application in quadrant A, or quadrant 1, 2, and 3. In quadrant 4, bottom right-hand corner, is the embedded materials from each of the specific sites to which you've made a designation. So the application in this manner is responsive It responds to your interest, your programs or designation site selections, I should say, and will allow you to answer those additional questions as you move forward. The next slide here won't linger too long, but this is just giving you an indication that you'll be able to search for sites in a variety of different ways using a variety of different filters. So you'll be able to access the sites that you're interested in based on some criteria that are important to you. This is a slide that's just giving you a little deeper dive into personal information, but to give you a sense of how it works, bottom left, you're going to be able to see, top left of the page, a fuel gauge. You'll notice that our application is designed in such a way to let you know as an applicant where you stand in this process. So in this particular example, it's indicating that there are 6 sections to complete, or 6 components. This particular example, 1 is complete of the 6. You'll notice that the fuel gauge is 1/6 of the way full or green. You'll notice a little bit of a check mark above 1/6 that's grayed out. So this is simply letting you know that there's still work to be done in this section. Specifically, 5 components still have to be completed here. Once you get to that complete stage, the fuel gauge will fill entirely green, and the number will convert 6 to 6, and there'll be a check mark. So we want to make this as visually intuitive as possible, and our testing shows us that this works fairly well with applicants. You get a good sense of this here on the top left. You see sections completed 1 of 1. Again, a visual representation. The fuel gauge is entirely green. It's green throughout the circle with a white check mark. 1 of 1 sections completed. And what we're asking applicants to do here in this particular screen is add a college. So again, you'll only have to do this once for the total number of sites to which you want to apply or designate. You'll only have to attend your academic history once. So quite a nice streamlined efficiency from previous models where you might have had to repeat this work 3 or 4 times across 3 or 4 applications. So in this example, this particular candidate is indicating that they attended Johns Hopkins, did not earn a degree, and now have the opportunity to download the transcript request form. We will process all the necessary documents and materials and then share them with the sites to which you've designated. Want to be clear here that if you are making application to 4 sites, we only share that information with those 4 sites. And the sites do not share information, so the sites do not know at the point of application where else you've submitted an application. The next slide you're seeing here is a screenshot of recommendations. Letters of recommendation will all be initiated through NAFCAS. We will ask you to give us some information. We'll pick the 3rd example here, Jessica Price. We will ask you who's going to write a recommendation on your behalf. You'll give us some information, Jessica Price. You'll give us Jessica's email, a little bit more information about Jessica. The system will send an email to Jessica prompting her to complete a letter of recommendation on your behalf. She'll have the opportunity to complete that recommendation and upload it directly into our system. As an applicant, you'll be able to track each of these, and you'll see here the 3 recommenders are named Test, Jeff Brown and Jessica Price. You can see the status is that they've accepted the recommendation and are willing to do it. If for whatever reason the recommender declines the request, that would be shown here. That would be an indication to applicants that you'll need to make an additional recommendation request. But in this example, you can see that Test accepted the evaluation request and submitted the letter of recommendation on 9/1. Jeff Brown submitted his letter of recommendation on 11/19, and Jessica Price submitted it on 12/15. So you know that because after submitted, there's a date. Otherwise, it would say not applicable or in progress. You can see that the fuel bar is entirely green and there's a check mark. So as an applicant, you'll be able to track your letters of recommendation every step of the way here and determine where those recommendations are throughout the process. My last slide before we move to any questions and back to Renata is a visual representation of what we call that 4th quadrant. If you recall, the application has 4 sections. 3 of the 4 are centralized, meaning the data elements are the same across each of the sites to which you're applying. But the 4th quadrant, or program materials, is where the site can actually customize the application to their needs. In this particular example, Watertown University, a fictitious university, is giving you some information about what else to do. They're giving you sort of next steps, what happens. They're giving you some program details, the start date, the city, for example, things you probably know, but things the program may want to reiterate here, or the site, I should say. And then you see the Documents tab and the Questions tab. What this is indicating is that this particular site, Watertown University, is going to ask you to load and upload an additional document and may have additional questions specific to the Watertown University site. So if you're applying to 7 sites, you would expect to have 7 of these customized program pages for you. We call them program pages. We're really referencing sites. We call them program because we simply mean they're customizable by each site. So the site page here will be configured based on what the site wants to collect from you as a candidate, and you'll be prompted to complete those for each of the sites to which you're making applications. So again, if you're applying to 8 sites, you'll have 8 of these to complete for each of your respective sites. So before I turn it back over to Renata, we'll say that we've done a lot of testing with the application. We're trying to make it as intuitive as possible, as user-friendly as possible. We have help desks, phone lines, emails where we can help with completing the application if you have any questions. I mentioned the website there on the bottom right, but also, again, would reiterate that this year the application will open to all students on July 19th. So we are excited, look forward to a great application cycle. Wish all of you as applicants well in this process. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Renata.
Thank you, Robert. I just want to let students know that a question we get often is what this will cost. So it is $32 per application, and we consider an application based on each organization, not how many fellowship positions you're applying to necessarily. For example, some organizations have multiple locations or multiple fellowships that they're offering within NAFCAS, and if they are listing that as part of their one application, that will only cost you $32 for that application. So for example, Trinity Health has locations all over the country, and they will be listing as Trinity Health, but will give you the availability of questions that you can rank and select which locations your application will apply to, and that will only count as one application. And another question that we get often is when will new sites be added and how you can find that information. So we will be updating our website, which is at nchl.org, with any new members that we add on board, so you can find any updated information there. You may also contact me. That's my contact information, my direct email, and my direct phone. If you have any questions about the application or NAFCAS, about what it means to be an NCAF member, and what the organization's participating, if they are on board with NAFCAS or not, you can give me a call or email me. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. So thank you everyone for joining the call. Thank you Robert and Joyce Ann for also participating on the webinar, and have a great week.